Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 14th December 2020. In this video, we'll be discussing a couple of issues. First one is a issue that is related to disaster management. There is a sleepy town called Eluru in Andhra Pradesh which has uh, shocked the entire country by witnessing a strange illness where people were exhibiting strange symptoms in the form of nausea or fits or concussions. So the major reason for this has been attributed to the presence of heavy metals in water. So what is the reason? Let us understand this and how it is related to disaster management. The second idea is with respect to the French secularism and the new law that has been brought out to contain the extremist forces within the country. So, this is related to the concept of secularism. Let us use this opportunity to understand the comparison between Indian version of secularism and the French idea of secularism, and how this new law is trying to be a antidote for terrorist activities in the country. And again, it is an interpretation as to how this is antithesis to the ideas laid down by the French nationalists in the early 18th and 19th centuries. So let us have a look into these issues now. So this article taken from the Financial Express titled Avoiding Another Eluru is regarding the regulation of chemicals. So like already discussed, this strange illness is attributed to the presence of bleach, chlorine due to COVID-19 sanitation, and also the penetration of heavy metals into food. So basically, we are talking about the management of chemical disasters as such. So if we talk about disaster management as an issue, there are three aspects to this. One, prevention, then mitigation, and the third aspect is rehabilitation. Now when we're talking about chemical disasters, they are man-made disasters. So there is no point in talking about rehab if we are not preventing it actually. So chemical disasters can be prevented completely in the first place. When we're talking about incidents like Eluru, we have to take the backdrop of chemical disasters in our country. So of late, Down to Earth, a magazine has noted that there are 3 to 4 unreported chemical disasters in our country every year. So the first one of national recognition has been the 1984 Bhopal gas tragedy. For the first time, we have witnessed the importance of having management practices that can actually contain this sort of chemical disasters. This has actually impacted severe damage to the lives of millions of people in Bhopal. Even till date, the repercussions are being faced by people. So, if you're talking about Eluru as such, this is the second such outbreak after the Vishakhapatnam gas leak, which has killed nearly 10 people and also subjected thousands of people to illness. So, reported cases are close to 1,000, but it is much more. So, there is a need for proper enforcement and also a policy with respect to management of chemicals in our country. Today, we have no policy or no law which regulates the handling and disposal of chemicals in our country. They are dealt in silos. When we're talking about pesticides or fertilizers, there is a minimal policy by the Department of Fertilizers under the Ministry of Chemicals. But as such, we don't have a framework to contain this chemical disasters. There is definitely a plan in the form of National Disaster Management Plan, and under that there is a heading called chemical disasters, but it is not actually enforced because of lack of understanding, and the need for coordination has been undermined across various ministries and departments. So this is an opportunity to relook at the national chemical policy, which has been introduced in the parliament way back in 2012 to make it a formidable law, but there has been no update on that policy ever since. Of course, in 2018, there was another draft version which was released, but no action was taken on that either. So, as far as the laws that are concerning the man-made disasters in the form of chemicals is concerned, we only have the Environment Protection Act, which deals with the pollution caused by this. Of course, there are various other laws like the Hazardous Movement of Chemicals Act, or even the IPC section, which has certain provisions to punish those who are found guilty of criminal negligence towards maintaining these factories. So there is also this liability act which lays down who pays how much with respect to damages that occur after a chemical accident. So all this needs to be enforced properly, but much more importance is to be given to handling hazardous waste and also at containing the creation of this hazardous waste. Today we are a country which is not even recycling a part or one third of the waste that we generate today. Eventually, through concepts of bioaccumulation that you have learned in your environment classes, we know that these heavy metals get accumulated across the food chains and enter our fat tissues, and when these heavy metals are metabolized, they cause irreversible damages sometimes to the nervous system. So all this have a devastating effect on the life of human beings. It is an imperative for the government to come up with a coordinative policy which handles all the chemical issues and all the chemical disasters comprehensively. It is high time that we come up with a national chemical management policy and a law to penalize those who are not stringent enough to follow the guidelines. So that is the gist of this article, a very important article with respect to disaster management. We can expect a question on this somewhere in mains 2020 or even prelims or mains 2021. The second article for the day is taken from the Indian Express, and this is regarding the idea of French secularism. Now, when we talk about secularism, we have to understand the two connotations, the positive connotation and the negative connotation. And as far as French idea of secularism is concerned, it is the negative connotation. And when we're talking about the Indian context, it is the positive connotation of secularism. Now, let us understand what exactly the word secularism means. Secularism means separation of state and religion. So, this can be interpreted in two different ways. If you take the case of India, it is Sarma Dharma Samabhava. That is to say, in the Indian scenario, all the religions are encouraged equally. The reason for this is, in India, religion is a way of life, and you cannot just take away that way of life from Indians. So it would be an emotive issue, and if had the constitution not recognized this principle, it would have been a chaotic situation. But on the other hand, if you take a look at the French version of secularism, it is completely different. It is a blanket ban of religion in state affairs. So there are certain activities like banning wearing of burqas or turbans in public places, and you cannot follow your religion in public places. Religion here is a completely private activity. So given these circumstances, you have to understand the reason behind coming up with such a conception of secularism. If you take the look at the medieval French society or European society as such, it is dominated by dogmas, wherein science was not allowed to flourish. There was better intolerance towards science, and everyone who has opposed the ideas of church were persecuted. So, in this backdrop, in order to inculcate that scientific temper and also the effect of World War II, wherein the devastating effects caused by the World War has caused disillusion to an entire generation, wherein they started disbelieving in God and religion as such. So, The scientific temper has flourished in European society, and they started to discourage the involvement of state and religion. But as the forces of globalization started hitting French society in the recent times, we have seen a large influx of migrants, especially the uh, Muslim migrants, to whom this French ethos of complete alienation from religion is not acceptable, since they found it derogatory, and certain fundamentalist elements of Islam have attacked the uh, citizens of French. The government has decided to come up with a law which tries to contain these sort of attacks. So, by calling Islamist fundamentalist as the enemy within, the very ethos of the French society is undergoing a transformation. So, this can be partially attributed to what we know as Yellow Vest protests that happened a couple of years ago in France. So, a lot of French citizens protested against the influx of migrants changing the demography and the cultural ethos of their society. So, the president Macron has been facing a severe backlash, and the present law to reinforce this negative concept of state and religion separation can be seen as an appeasement towards those who are discontent with the president. So, this has political connotation as well. His popularity is coming down significantly. If we take a closer look at this, any country should accept the reality that if migrants are sidelined, there is a different form of separatism over there, because it is a breeding ground for extremist violence. So we have to ensure that every citizen in a society is having basic minimum needs. Basic needs are to be fulfilled for all the migrants. In a globalized world, we cannot adhere to a simple definition of secularism, especially when there is influx of migrants. So in order to address all these dynamic challenges, the policy needs to be evolved from time to time, and the basic framework should be to ensure that basic needs are given for all, and discontent and revolution should be contained at every single point of time.